Catherine Connolly, please.
Minister, my question relates to the new coalition government in Israel and what engagement you've had or intend to have with that government, and particularly in view of the Israel's ongoing de facto annexation of Palestinian lands, and also the Human Rights Watch report which has come out. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy. And we've already debated these issues, but I think this is a very useful question to respond to. Also, Israel's new coalition government took office on the 13th of June. I've written to the new Foreign Minister, Yair Lapid, and I look forward to having a chance to speak with him in due course on a range of issues. The EU High Representative has spoken to the new Israeli Foreign Minister, Lapid. I participated in a discussion on the Middle East at the Foreign Affairs Council on Monday. The relationship between Israel and the EU is important, and we hope to have an opportunity to meet with Minister Lapid at the Foreign Affairs Council in the coming months. Civil society organisations play a valuable role in relation to protecting human rights. My department considers the analysis of civil society on the situation in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, including the report to which the Deputy refers. Ireland also provides financial support to Israeli and Palestinian NGOs working on human rights, particularly in occupied Palestinian territory. The human rights situation in the occupied Palestinian territory is very concerning. Ireland raises concerns about human rights and unlawful and discriminatory practices against Palestinians, both directly with the government of Israel and in multilateral fora. Many of you would have heard me doing that, including the UN Security Council and the Human Rights Council. Ireland's position will continue to be based on international law. Israel's obligations as an occupying power under the 4th Geneva Convention and the relevant resolutions of the UN Security Council. Later today, Ireland will participate in the monthly UN Security Council meeting on the situation in the Middle East. Today's session, which includes Israeli and Palestinian permanent representatives to the UN, focuses on the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2334, which relates to settlements. Ireland will set out our clear position on the illegality of Israeli actions on settlements, evictions and unnecessary demolitions, and our concerns at the scale and nature of their expansion, which negatively impact both the human rights of Palestinians in the occupied territory and prospects for a future viable two-state solution.
Thank you, Minister. I was struck by the forcefulness of your language in reply to other questions, particularly in relation to Hungary and Belarus, and you talked about human rights and you talked about core principles. Quite clearly, the policy of Israel has gone beyond all of the core principles, and for a report from the Human Rights is entitled "A Threshold Crossed: Our Israeli Authorities and the Crimes of Apartheid and Persecution," published in April, and they go on to detail in the strongest language possible the report, the crimes against humanity of persecution and apartheid that Israeli authorities are committing against millions of Palestinians. Now, you referred to the new government taking power on the 12th of June. Significantly, on the 15th of June, there was a second round of airstrikes against Gaza after they took power. So I'm asking you specifically what forceful action, and I appreciate your bona fides and your hard work in this matter, but as we talk and as we use words, people are dying on the streets of Gaza. I have the details here, you have them. The ambassador from Palestine has filled all of us in on this. So I'm asking you, in view of the trade between Europe and Israel, what actions are you taking?
First of all, just to respond to the accusation that as we talk, people are dying in the streets of Gaza, I don't think that's fully accurate. I'm glad to say we have a ceasefire. Obviously, there was real concern at airstrikes in recent days in Gaza. Thank goodness nobody was fatally injured in those airstrikes. But you know, there's no country in the EU, Deputy, that's more vocal on this issue than Ireland, and there's no foreign minister more vocal on this issue than me. And I use the opportunity again under the current affairs section of the discussions at the Foreign Affairs Council on Monday to raise my concern in relation to these issues, to ask yet again for the European Commission to produce a toolbox so that we can really understand the leverage we have and the tools that we can use to make sure that we get real engagement on some of these issues. There was an indication that the new Israeli Foreign Minister would be invited to come to meet us in the Foreign Affairs Council. I would welcome that and the opportunity for that discussion. So, Deputy, we will continue to focus on ensuring that Ireland uses its influence as best we can to move towards a discussion and negotiation for a permanent peace settlement, which is ultimately what this is about.
Thank you. I don't wish to argue over numbers in relation to deaths, but the ambassador tells us that 5 Palestinians have been killed since the beginning of June, including one boy. A 15-year-old is the 3rd child to be killed in the village of Beta, and so on. We know that the International Criminal Court is under extreme pressure, and the civil organisations that support that and the staff there, because of the increasing public criticism by England, by the leader in England, and by Israel itself, amongst other countries. We know that because former politicians here have signed a letter in relation to that matter. So what I'm saying to you, Minister, is the EU does trade with Israel. You used such strong words in relation to other countries, in relation to gay rights, which is perfectly right. But we don't use the same strong language when it comes to what is happening by Israel in their occupation, illegal by any standard, and taking over and killing people. Now, I'm an absolute supporter of the Jewish nation, and I don't like to have to say that, but what's happening here is against all human rights standards, and we've got to stand up and say that while still supporting Israel. We have to stand up and say what you're doing is utterly wrong.
Yeah, look, Deputy, I actually agree with virtually everything you've just said. We need to have a relationship with Israel, but we've also got to call out breaches of international law. I think I can be accused of some things in this House, but I'm not sure it's fair to accuse me of not speaking directly and in a strident manner in relation to the Israel-Palestinian conflict. I think I have been very direct in terms of my calling out of breaches of international law, of disproportionate use of force, of the concern that I have that not enough has happened to protect civilians and children. We've also backed that up with a significant increases in financial support for UN organisations working in Gaza. I don't shy away from using strident language when it's appropriate to do that. But I also think there is an opportunity now to reach out to a new Israeli government and to try to ensure that we have a change of direction over time in terms of their policy direction towards Palestinians, which I call out and this Parliament calls out all the time.